India jumbo jet was just 45 minutes away from landing at Heathrow this morning when it suddenly disappeared from radar screens. One theory is that it was destroyed by a bomb.
40 years ago, in the summer of 1985, Air India Flight 182 went down over the Atlantic Ocean in Cork. The Irish Naval Service was called to respond, and the ship, the L.E. Ashling, was one of the first to arrive on scene. On board was my late father. He joined the Navy as a teenager and stayed serving until shortly after my parents had me.
Jerry, or we call him Gozzy, we joined the Navy together. He was 17, I was just 18 and a half. And we went to Spike, and there was 156 of us were on Spike Island. We were absolutely thrilled to join the Navy. Jerry went into communications, I went into mechanicians branch, which is engine room side of things, and we couldn't believe it. After growing up together as kids, after joining the Navy together, we ended up in the same ship together.
I spoke with 3 of his crewmates who were there with him on the day and in the years that followed to detail their experience on June 23rd, 1985. Most of the men on board have not spoken about their experience since, because what they thought was a rescue mission soon turned into pulling dead bodies out of freezing and shark-infested water.
Came to the days where we ended up going to the Air India, and that, I think, changed a lot of our lives, where we seen things that we didn't really think that we'd ever see. But I think we performed okay, and me and your dad performed very, very well.
131 bodies have now been recovered from the Air India jumbo jet, which crashed off the southwest coast with 329 passengers and crew.
JJ O'Mahony was in the communications department, and he was in the comms tower with my father on the day of the disaster. It was he who received the Mayday call from Valentia Island.
I just heard this SOS on the Mayday on the radio from Valentia. Shortly after that, then we got a message from the base to proceed to the location and, take over as the on-scene commander.
Michael Hickey was working on deck, and he was on lookout on the day of the disaster.
I was on lookout anyway. I was on watch at 8 o'clock till 12, and I was on lookout at 11. And someone kept talking to me. I don't know who it was. I wasn't doing my job anyway. But the captain shouted out. He says, Ellis, he says, can you see it in the head? Because I was looking the other direction, like. So at that time, we didn't expect nothing to be there ahead of us, like, No one mentioned it about a crashed plane or nothing. We were just going along a normal day walking, like, And the next day I put the binoculars to the head and looked ahead, and I could see the smoke. As we got closer and closer, then the first thing we saw then was the wheels of the aircraft, and then the bodies started coming up. We just swung into action and got people in the water, the divers, and when the first bodies came on board, and when we lowered that Gemini, the first one on the deck, everyone down there just froze, because they didn't expect to see what was inside that Gemini, like, there was about 7 or 8 bodies in it. But 2 people, I always mention their names. One was the P.O. Stewart, Joe Sheridan, and the other guy was Billy Carter, a local lad here, the leading cook. They were there. Remember Billy and his whites, the whole lot, and Joe was the P.O. Stewart. And we were just standing around looking like we're going to froze, And the next thing, the 2 boys says, come on, lads, let's go, Let's go, come on, get in. But they were the first people that got into that Gemini and started, as you said, we'll go, Christy, giving the people back their little bit of dignity by putting blankets around them and sheets wrapped up. Because they were all, you can imagine coming down that distance, there was no clothes there, like, ripped apart. But we gave them back their dignity by wrapping them up in sheets.
Christy Ahern was a very good friend of my father's, and he still serves in the Navy to this day. He was working in the engineering department.
A naval ship at the time would have went to sea, and they would have had X amount of body bags. No, maybe 2 or 3 body bags as the most. Because you would never ever expect to be going into a massive scene like that.
Yeah.
So I think we only had about 4 body bags
That's all, yeah.
And then everything else in, we had to improvise.
Yeah.
What happened there is that we basically had to go and get these bodies and put them into different compartments and stack them up, which was absolutely horrendous, which is quite tough. And like after them bodies were removed, I was on that ship a number of weeks after, and I remember hearing the crew, there was a cleaning locker directly below it, and there would have been consumed blood that would have went down into the cleaning locker, and it had to be cleaned. So you can imagine, and a couple of years later I went back out into that ship, and that engineer's office, I used to walk in there at night time, and I used to sit there at night time thinking, my God, I remember
all the boilers stand up.
I remember that day. But as I said, as we talked about, there's a lot of us tried to blag that out of our heads, and we had to get on because we had a career in the Naval Service, and we signed up, and we thought, you know what, this is our job, and you know, we wanted to do that.
It was amazing how everyone just bonded together that day. There were young people there, 17, 18-year-olds. I was a few years older, like myself and Jake there were.
Not much older.
Not much older, but the captain was only 35 himself, like, you know, Jim Robinson, he was only 35, so from 35 down, I'd have been probably about 27 or 28, I'd say, like, you know. People had a choice. If people want to be up on deck, they're told, there's no problem, go up down to the mess deck or something, like, you know. But the smell of aviation fuel in all day long was, you know, you couldn't even eat a dinner. We went down, have a look at our dinner, but you couldn't because of the smell of the aviation fuel, you know. You couldn't do it, like, you know.
If you look at the water out there now, and it's so calm, right? So on that day, when I went up and I went through from the engine room up, and I opened up a door and I looked out and I saw the undercarriage, but the weather was so bad, and we had stopped. So a naval ship, when it's in the water, it's okay when it's traveling through the waves. Okay, you may have stabilizers, but we were fixed in a kind of position because we were central, in the epicenter of a whole lot of it. And what happens is that the ship then would be thrown all over the place. So the crew was trying to deal with obviously dropping boats, getting the boats out, get the crew members onto the boats, out safely. And then the crew then were trying to go along, and the way they had to stand on deck, so the ship was constantly being thrown around the place, you know. So, and then you look into the sea, and I do remember just so much debris all over there. So it was the whole plane.
And bodies as well. Yeah, I remember the bodies particularly. Like,
yeah, 38 bodies we recovered, and three kids.
They would have been charred, and they would have been
38 and 3.
Some of them were dismembered, and that, you know, it was horrific, right? Horrendous.
And as you said, other people, if you were given, you know, if you wanted to do something, you got involved with it. You weren't forced to do it.
No.
But you would have been, say, a spotter, and you went up, and you would put your hand up if you seen a body or something like that over that way.
Oh, there's, yeah.
But you might see 4 bodies over here. So do you lose that one body and just go for the bulk amount of bodies, you know, which was kind of terrible. And I'm remembering bits and pieces there now as well.
Yeah, and the divers then, like...
Sharks as well, isn't there? And they were
away.
They were. You could see them pulling down on the bodies in the water.
The rescue teams have reported that sharks are now in the area, making their work even more hazardous.
Look at it. Understand there's sharks in the air, is that correct?
Each piece of wreckage is vital to the team of investigators. They could provide the crucial forensic evidence to confirm that a terrorist bomb was planted on board the Air India Jumbo.
We just used to say every once in a while, it could be with a few pints, we might just go, gee, that was tough, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And he'd just go, there we go. See, he really found it very, very hard. And I could talk to him because the fact that, you know, I had good family behind me that I suppose just grabbed me around and made sure I was okay and stuff. And I presume your dad had it as well. But it was the realization that it was so hard. And it was really, really tough for every crew member on board. Every other crew member on board Ellie Ashling were absolutely heroes. Where on that day, they taught us how to look after people, how to make sure that your buddy next to you was looked after, and we had great respect for the people that were taken out of the water. We tried to get them on board the ship, and we all knew that these people needed to be buried at some stage.
A plaque is to be unveiled on Habolan Naval Base in Cork with each of the names of the crew of the Ellie Ashling in 1985. This is to mark their contributions on the day of the Air India disaster, which until this point had never really been spoken about. The hope is that the new recruits will see the names of the men who have served before them and be inspired from there.